This morning we have Director of Animal Services, Jamie Cantrell, and he's going to provide us an overview of our new backyard chicken guidelines. So thank you so much.
Will this go, or is there a deal? Oh, there it is. I didn't see it there. All right. Well, first, good morning. As she said, my name is Jamie Cantrell. I'm the Animal Services Director for the City of Plano. And we have some new revisions that went into effect in late September that I wanted to enlighten everyone about. Kind of the process that we were to get here is that we made several presentations to council about this, and at the June 28th meeting, they requested for us to bring a ordinance change for them to consider, which is what happened in September. So we worked with our legal department. We worked with a group of citizens here that had organized on Facebook. It's the Plano Hens group that was there. If you want to join, just look up Plano Hens with no space in between the words, and you'll find them on Facebook. We then created a draft that we felt would be good for the city of Plano and meet some of our special needs that we have here. We then worked out with other departments in the city, planning, building inspections, health department, all had their ability to review and provide feedback. And then we went to our Animal Shelter Advisory Committee and let them debate it and discuss it for a while, which they went in great detail through it and went through it with a fine-tooth comb, so to speak. And in the end, they voted to recommend to council that they supported the ordinance changes. And then we also had to have zoning changes that were to be considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission that were also approved prior to this going to council. So the actual ordinance itself, what we try to do is utilize as much as possible ordinances that were already existing. So we didn't change the pet limit. In Plano, you are legally allowed to have up to 10 animals, and this doesn't change. So if you decide that you have no other pets but you want to have 10 hens, you are allowed to do that, provided that you can meet all the other requirements for space and setback and everything else that are in place. If you already have 5 dogs and 2 cats, then you can have no more than 3 hens at this point. So we also used our animal housing enclosures ordinances that were there already. That has distance requirements from any building that the owner doesn't own. If you have 4 or fewer hens, it has to be at least 20 feet away from the closest building that isn't owned by the pet owner. If there's 5 or more, it has to be 50 feet away. So we do that to try to prevent nuisances, to prevent people from being bothered by their neighbors' pets, and that's something that it doesn't matter whether it's a coop that's housing hens or if it's a pen that somebody has put to house their dogs. Those distance requirements are in place that what we have there. Kind of hard for me to see. We also have restrictions on the sales of chickens and rabbits. That's something that has been in place as well. Slaughtering of animals. Now, as a city, we can't tell people they're not legally allowed to slaughter any animal because that impinges upon religious freedoms. But we can say that you have to do it outside of the public view, and that's what we do, again, so that it hopefully doesn't create an issue for anyone else in the neighborhood. Some requirements that we came up with that were specific to chickens is that, first and foremost, roosters are prohibited. So it's only for female chickens, the hens, not roosters. Unfortunately, when chicks are very young, it's almost impossible for people to tell them apart. So we will be dealing with some issues involving roosters, but that is something that we'll express to the permit holders, that it is their responsibility to try to get that taken care of before it becomes an issue where anyone has to call and complain about it. We also have to have a permit through our department that they will have to apply for. And that has minimum size limits for the coop and exercise yard, which every coop has to be at least 4 square feet per hen. The exercise yard has to be at least 8 square feet per hen. And there has to be all of these things that are provided to us through a site drawings and other types of materials, so we can make sure that everything is in accordance with the ordinance. They also have to take an educational class, which can be online, it can be in person. There are opportunities for things like that we've already identified to help people out that want to do that. And then there's a permit fee of just $15. Some of the other requirements for them, they must be kept in their coop and their exercise yard unless there's direct adult supervision there, which means that the person has to be in the backyard with them if they're going to be outside of the coop. Any sort of waste material must be immediately disposed of because we don't want to allow that to accumulate to where it could create odor and other nuisances for the neighborhood. Also, food sources and those types of things all must be kept in secure containers so that you don't, hopefully will not attract up rats and mice and rodents, things like that, other pests that nobody really wants around. And then all of the eggs and other chicken byproducts is what the official term is, can only be sold in accordance with local, state, and federal guidelines. So there are some restrictions in place, but we can't tell people they're not allowed to do any sort of sale because of some state laws that are in place already. And they also have to have their wings clipped so that they hopefully won't be able to fly over the required 6-foot fence that is around the backyard of the property. So the one thing that is very important to remember is that our city ordinance does not supersede any HOA restrictions that may be in place or any deed restrictions. It is up to the permit holder to make sure that they check with their HOA and also look at their deed and see if there's any restrictions on keeping livestock or fowl. And if they don't, then they're allowed by our ordinances to be able to have chickens there. If the HOA does decide to, not allow it within their jurisdiction, though, that is not something the city will enforce. That is up to the HOAs to do their own enforcement with, because I can't tell someone they're not allowed to have. I can only tell people they have to abide by city ordinance. I can't enforce HOA rules. And then another thing to keep in mind also is that there have been, in the last 2 sessions, legislative sessions, state laws proposed that would limit a city's and an HOA's ability to restrict hens. So it has not passed at this time, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't brought back in the next legislative session as well. And I know we'll have questions at the end, but that pretty much sums up the what we have for chickens. So, Ms. Prince?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jamie, for providing that overview. Our next speaker today is Director of Planning, Christina Day, and then also Comprehensive Planning Manager, Mike Bell, and they're going to give us an update on the draft Comprehensive Plan 2021. So take it away.
Thank you. All right. Well, good morning. I am Christina Day, and this is Mike Bell, and so we've come to talk about the Comprehensive Plan. And so with that, we'll move on to our first slide. So first, we just want to talk a little bit about what is a comprehensive plan. So a comprehensive plan is a 20 to 30-year guide to the city's growth. So it is looking very much forward-thinking. It's about the future. It's intended to guide in really 3 ways. And so the most important or most impactful to most people and the way they see it most often is through zoning and development. That's the way most people think about the implementation of the comprehensive plan, but we also do use it in other ways, such as financial means, the connections to the budget, and to the community investment program. So under state law, if you have zoning, you must have a comprehensive plan once you implement zoning, and zoning decisions must be in conformance with a comprehensive plan. So regarding comprehensive plans and zoning, we like to use this analogy. So for those in the room, I'll take a quick poll. It's coming up on this time of the year of kind of fall. So if we have choices between pumpkin pie and pecan pie, who are my pumpkin people? All right, and pecan. It looks like pecan may have a slight edge here, so we'll go with pecan. All right, so let's say Plano wants to be a pecan pie. That's our vision for the future. We're going to be a luscious pecan pie. So really the comprehensive plan is how we think about that. We've decided we want to be a pecan pie. We have its vision in our mind of what a pecan pie is like. And all the deliciousness that entails. And so the recipe is really the regulatory side of things. So the zoning ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, those regulations tell you how you accomplish building that pie. So that's the distinction. But really, one influences the other, right? You're not going to select your recipe for your pie until you know what kind of pie you want to make. So that's why the plan is so important. So a little bit about our plan history. We've had 3 major plans since 1963. And so really that's based on the city's fast-growing history. Starting in the 1950s, post-war, we started to see a lot of growth, and with the great amount of forethought that we have a tradition of in this community, the city implemented a comprehensive plan in the 60s. Then that continued growth occurring through the 1980s. We needed a significant update. And then seeing that growth curtail, we needed another update in 2015. Then currently, we've been operating under an interim comprehensive plan, which is going back to the 86 version. And so that is the history that we have to date. The Comprehensive Plan Review Committee was formed in late 2019 and met first in 2020, in January of 2020. The role was to review the then current Plano Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan, address community concerns about land use, transportation, density, and growth management. So that was the focus of the committee. So the draft plan review process was a collaboration between the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, or as you may hear me refer to it, CPRC for short, and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the purpose was to seek consensus on these items that we knew were a concern to the community. So this is an example of the results of their work. This is a website that is planocomplan.org, and it is a draft comprehensive plan that is web-based. It's available for you to review now, and you can see the full plan in web form on this website. So what's changed? We have new guiding principles. This is an addition. It was not part of the prior plan. They're in 3 different categories, and they're intended to be sort of a filter through which we see the plan, giving a kind of overarching view of what the city should be today, what it is today, what it should be in the future, and then also some unifying themes about Plano together. Then more of the planning-oriented, sort of more traditional planning-oriented, we've had a significant amount of change to the land use categories and dashboards. We have new and revised categories, so the changes in the plan are really related to this core element, and this gives guidance to future uses. So we'll get into a little more detail on these land use categories. We have an example here. This is the neighborhood corners category. And so each of these dashboards looks familiar. They look very similar. They have photographs. They have the level of detail, description, metrics, photos, and priorities that you see represented here. So we'll go into some detail on the mix of uses. So each one has a prioritized mix of uses, but there's flexibility within that mix of uses. So you can see there's sort of a baseline for each mix of uses, and then there's allowed, like certain allowances to allow flexibility, because we know each area of town is not exactly the same, not completely cookie cutter, so we need some flexibility there. Then there's also photos, examples of what each land use looks like. Another example here are the desirable characteristics. And there was a lot of discussion, as you might imagine, about these desirable characteristics. But these are really important, I think, for the community having a solid understanding of what these future land use categories bring. They establish things like building height, density, and those things that the community really cares about, understanding how will this impact me, how does it impact either my property as an adjacent property or my property as a property owner. And then other kind of design elements that we're anticipating for the future. So another critical element is the land use and housing inventory. So, Mike, if you want to pitch in on this.
Yeah, so the CPRC said, it's great to have these goals and the dashboards of what the mix of uses should be, but we need to be able to measure those with what's on the ground today. So what we did was staff went through and evaluated the entire city and grouped them into those 7 categories that you saw on the previous slide. So what we can actually do is, if you go to the next slide, you can see an example here is the intersection of Park and Preston. So the top map you see is the future land use category of suburban activity centers. The bottom is how that's mapped in our existing land use and housing inventory, which is how we've analyzed the whole city. And you can then measure with those little bars the existing amount versus what the dashboard recommends. So it allows us through zoning cases to see how is this going to shift the measurements in these areas. And ultimately what you can then answer is, do these areas support more of any of these types of land uses? So does this area suggest more retail, more types of housing? We can answer these types of questions and really clearly measure the comprehensive plan's recommendations.
All right. So another critical change is redevelopment and growth management. So this policy also had a large amount of discussion. And you see really critical elements here. So if you're looking at what's changed in the comprehensive plan, this is something that I recommend looking at this policy. It's a new policy that was not previously in the plan, and City Council has already adopted a findings policy that if anything is adopted that is outside the specific details that you saw on the prior sheet with that category and dashboard specifically related to height, density, and the land use, that there will be findings both by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, just so there are specific rationale given anytime there is a specific purpose for going outside those norms that the city has adopted. So one other important thing, this is not really a part of the plan, but it was a part of the process, so we like to point this out, our zoning process improvements. There was a considerable amount of concern related to what's happening with zoning, how do I find out about zoning? So in response to that, we've made a number of changes. And so, Mike, you want to talk about the zoning alert system?
Yeah, so one of the ideas actually came from an idea of one of our members was to get like a weather alert when a new zoning case is submitted in your area. So what this system will allow you to do is go in, put in what zip codes in Plano that you would like to receive notices on. When there's a new zoning case submitted in that area, you'll get a notification by email with links to find out more information.
That's great. So I think that's going to be really helpful, and we'll definitely be promoting that. So your people in your neighborhoods will be able to sign up. You can sign up for every neighborhood if you're interested in the whole city, or you can just limit it to your area. So we hope that'll be helpful to individuals. Then we have a new active zoning case website that provides additional information regarding each active zoning case that is under review, provides additional information. It provides plans that was not previously available. There's also a kind of dashboard of information that's available related to each land-based zoning case, and updated notifications. We've updated our notification documents as well to make those a little more user-friendly. So top takeaways that we're looking for, there's more specificity in the plan. Hopefully that helps people have a better understanding of what to expect. The guiding principles that help, again, people understand what the overall vision is, and a higher bar anytime there is a need to go outside those specific standards that were the highest concerns, the height, density, land use. There will be specific rationale given for those. So last comment is participation. So Mike, you want to cover that?
Yeah, so we have recently wrapped up our online survey. We're hoping to post those results soon. And the plan is now scheduled to go to City Council on November 8th. So you're welcome to review the plan before that meeting and come and attend the public hearing and share your feedback.
Great. So that's the end of our presentation, and we'll be glad for questions later. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We're now going to have a presentation on the dead tree notification letters, a very exciting topic. We're all on the edge of our seats to hear about this. From Property Standards Manager Scott Lucier. Thank you so much, Scott.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Lucier. I am the Property Standards Manager, and yes, I did get the hot topic of the day, dead tree letters and dead trees within the City of Plano. The City of Plano has more dead and damaged trees this year than it typically has in any year, and we can thank Winter Storm Uri for that. Winter Storm Uri has left about 6,000 dead, damaged, or dying trees within the City of Plano. Earlier in the summer, in June, the city decided that it was going to take a very proactive step to start identifying these trees. They are a public safety hazard. Many of them are very, very large trees, and there are some very, very large dead branches in those trees. So in June, the city began property standards. In addition with Parks Department, began a survey across the city. Every property across the city identifying the dead trees, privately owned property and city-owned property. And that's where we identified the 6,000 trees that were affected. With the help of Parks Department and the urban forester, we categorized those trees based on 3 categories, whether they were a high risk, a medium risk, or a low risk to the public safety. We then went back a couple months later in August, because some of these trees may bounce back. Some trees that didn't appear to be dead may start dying. So urban forester advised that after a couple months we'd go back and we'd do another reassessment of those trees. So in August we went back to the high priority trees and did a second reassessment of all of those. Again, private property and city property. Parks Department was already in the process of removing their dead trees, but they also did a secondary reassessment for any new trees that may have come on, as did Property Standards. We found that there were some of the trees that had previously been identified that were bouncing back, which was great. We were able to either reduce their risk level or take them off the list altogether because they were going to make a full recovery. There were a number of new trees that were actually picked up that were placed back on the chart or placed on the chart for the first time. And then there were most of them unfortunately remained in the same condition. With that, we came up with just under 2,000 trees that needed to be addressed, that were a high risk to public safety. With that, we developed the initial notice letter that's going out. It's actually not a notice letter, it's just a general letter. It outlines what Winter Storm Uri did to the trees and the vegetation in the City of Plano. It explains the survey process that the city did in assessing trees as high risk, medium risk, or low risk. And then it notifies these individuals that one of these trees has been identified on their property. And the property owners were requesting that they take the steps now, within the next 60 days, to start addressing it. Whether it's trimming the tree, trimming the dead limbs that are on the tree that need to come off, or whether it's removing the tree altogether. Some of you all may have noticed in the last 2 days, with the high winds that we've had, a lot of limbs are starting to fall out of these trees. Some of those limbs can be very large and can be very injurious, property damage, cars. The last couple of days, social media has been full of images of trees just falling, live healthy trees falling, in addition to dead limbs falling out. So this is an immediate risk to the residents of Plano, and we're asking them the property owners within the next 60 days to begin looking at getting the trees addressed. In the letter, we also provide a link to the city's website regarding dead trees, how you identify if your tree is dead or not dead, and then the resources that, some tips and tricks for trying to find a contractor. Most of these situations, especially the high-risk ones, are not a problem that property owner is going to be able to address on their own. This does require special equipment, a trained professional, to either remove the tree. Some of them are very large, and when they get real large, cranes have to be brought in to take them down piece by piece, or individuals have to climb up in the tree with harnesses and ropes, and then lower the sections down individually. So the notices started going out middle part of October. We're sending out, like I said, a little less than 2,000 notices. Today, the last few notices will go out. As you can imagine, we have received a lot of phone calls, and across the spectrum. Some people have been not too happy, and they don't understand how they're going to be able to afford taking a tree down. A typical tree, large tree, is going to be anywhere from $2,000 to upwards of $5,000 to $7,000 if a crane has to be brought in. It's a very expensive endeavor. A lot of these trees just need major trimming, which will render them safe, but a lot of them have to come down completely. We have gotten phone calls from people saying that they went to the websites and they didn't realize their tree was dead, and they would start making the steps to get it taken care of, all the way up to people that received my letter, I knew it was coming, we'll get it taken care of. So it's been across the gamut of anything you can imagine. Those are the phone calls that we're getting, and we'll probably continue to get them. Part of the problem now also is that contractors are hard to come by, and scheduling is way out. We've also got the holidays coming up. People have got Thanksgiving and Christmas that they're working on. Most contractors that you're hiring now are not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to put them on the schedule until January, February. We're getting those calls. We appreciate them for calling, and we're granting them the extension for those contractors to come out. Or if they need some additional time to get it taken care of, we'll look at the tree. How critical is it? Can we allow them to push it out to maybe after the holidays, January? It's typically when a contractor is going to be able to get out there anyways. So we're continuing to work with our residents. Like I said, this gives them 60 days. We're going to grant any reasonable amount of extension that comes in that we can, and we're going to work with them. We always try to partner with our residents and property owners as much as we can to get these issues taken care of. To kind of expound on it even more, we typically have a tree assistance program, but with the amount of previous issues that we've had, that program has run out of money. It's grant funded. It's money that's given to us specifically for tree assistance. We are trying desperately to find some more grant money to be able to use to this, but right now we don't have any financial resources, but we are working to try to get some more. So, and that is everything on dead trees that you want to know. So at the end, if you've got more questions, I will definitely be here. Thank you.
I joked about that, but I am a tree lover myself, and I have been through this. I had to take down a huge tree in my yard. It was very expensive, and it was very sad for me because it was one that had a swing, and everybody walks by my yard, and they're like, "Where did your big tree go?" So I feel everybody's pain having to go through this, and I'm sad that everybody's having to go through this, but I did replant some new trees, and I will say that we have a wonderful urban forester in our city, and there's some incredible resources on our website that tell you good trees to plant that will last a long time in Texas, and I utilize that, and so I have some fabulous trees that lasted through the storm in my yard, so definitely use those resources. All right, next we get to introduce our new Director of Public Works. Is this your first time to this meeting speaking?
No, I've done as his director before.
Oh, but as in your new,
Director.
as director, okay. So he's going to speak to us about, what are you going, it doesn't say which, Public Works, okay, just about your title. So this is our new Director of Public Works, Dan Pendergrass. So come on and talk about whatever you're going to talk about.
Well, we've gone through pecan pie and dead trees, so I'm not sure where this is going to go. No, I'm kidding. My name is Dan Prendergast. I'm the new Director of Public Works. I started with the city back in 2015 in the engineering department as a CIP manager. I moved over to Public Works as the Assistant Director in late 2018 and have recently been promoted to Director, and I got to run both these. All right. So as far as the organization, we have 4 divisions. On the left side in blue, you've got the Operations Division and the Compliance Division. Operations is our water and wastewater groups and our streets and traffic groups. Our Compliance Division takes care of water quality, technology, and asset management. On the right side, we just talked about all those dead trees as environmental waste services. Those dead trees have to go somewhere, and someone's got to collect them. So we have our residential waste, our trash, our recycling, our bulky waste, our household hazardous waste as well. Our commercial, which is focused on recycling. And then composting, which is where a lot of that dead trees go. They go to our composting section. We sell Texas Pure Products, which is compost and mulch, trying to divert that yard waste from the landfill, which helps save us money by not having to pay for that. And then at the bottom is Fleet Services, which kind of ties it all together. Fleet Services maintains all of our vehicles and major equipment for not only Public Works, but the entire city. And all of this centers around quality of life. In total, we have 361 staff and an operating budget of $175 million. So we are a very large department. And being a very large department, we have a very large departmental reach, both directly and indirectly. Again, it all centers around quality of life. I like to say that people don't notice Public Works when things are going well, but we all notice it when things are not going well. So we like to be not noticed, which is kind of strange, but that's the way we are. On top, you've got the emergency services and the response. We maintain our fire and police trucks. Our operations crews also handle debris removal, which we're having a lot of right now with the wind, snow and ice removal, and our fleet team takes care of our generators to make sure that our critical facilities stay online during power outages. The community services group, we take care of the neighborhood services vehicles, trash and recycling, mowing, traffic control for neighborhood events, and fix it. Customer service is a very big priority for us. If you call us, we're going to come look at what's going on and try to fix it, whether it be like a meter issue or a sidewalk issue, trash and recycling, or potholes, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. Public health and safety, we do water quality testing. I'll talk about that as well. Pumping facilities, make sure that you have pressure. Trash and recycling, sewer capacity and cleaning to make sure we're not having overflows, and then drainage debris removal to make sure that we're not having flooding from blocked creeks. And then most notable is infrastructure. Most people know about that. We maintain our roads, our water lines, our sewer lines, our screening walls, our sidewalks, and traffic signals. So again, very large departmental reach. Now I want to shift to kind of how we approach maintenance. There are 2 main ways that we approach maintenance: proactive, which is strategic, and reactive. We have shifted to a more proactive approach over the last 5 years especially. We want the reactive side to be about 25% or less of what we do. There's always going to be things that break and need to be fixed, but we use that data to help with our planning and increase that proactive approach. So in reactive, we want to be able to respond quickly to service calls and complaints. On the proactive approach, we're using that data to help plan. We're also doing inspections of our pipes, of our streets, to make sure that we know what condition that they're in and can figure out how much money that we're going to need in the future to be able to maintain our infrastructure, be able to plan, and use new technologies to be able to analyze data. And again, all that circles around customer service. So speaking of asset management, Cartograph is our asset management system. We have about 586,000 assets in the city of Plano. You can see them listed all around this graphic here. Our field crews have iPads. Whenever they go out and do work on an asset, it gets logged into the system, and you can look at the history there. So we know the condition and the issues that we're having out in the field. On the top right there, you can look at, we've had just over 15,000 requests last fiscal year. We had about 123,000 tasks. And so the requests are going to be people that call in with an issue. The tasks, a lot of those are preventative, or they're actually fixing something. So that's where that 25% comes in, and we're well below that right now, which is great. This is a screenshot of Cartograph. So I wanted to show you our water quality testing. This is 1 week of water quality testing that we do. So there's 111 tests that were performed all over the city. If I showed you a month, you see a lot more. We're constantly monitoring water quality. If I clicked on a dot there, you would be able to see what the test was, what the result was, who the person was that took the test, what time they took it, and what vehicle they drove to get there as well. So we have a lot of information in the system. It's fantastic. Next, I want to show you a new program that we just started, and this is kind of on the innovation side here. There's a company that has an artificial intelligence engine that's figured out how to detect leaks from space. They run a satellite across, and they use radar, and when radar, when it reacts with treated water and clay soils up to 9 to 10 feet deep, they'll give us a point of interest, which you see on the left side there in yellow. It's about a 200 to 300 foot radius. Then our crews go out and do leak detection. In the first week of this, we found or confirmed over 90 leaks. And that repaired a total of 150 gallons per minute of water loss, which is approximately 80 million gallons a year, which is about 0.4% of our overall usage. And this is valuable data for us to do future replacement projects. If we have a lot of points of interest in one area, we want to go focus there and instead of somewhere else. We also, our crews are more strategic as far as where they're looking for these leaks instead of going around the city and just trying to find them. And in the bottom there, you see kind of the X on the pavement. That's someone actually in the field doing the leak detection and finding exactly where it is to where our crews can go out there and fix it. Pretty neat stuff. And it wouldn't be a damn presentation without potholes. Right, Mark? So when I came over to Public Works, the focus was streets. We had a lot of potholes going on. So we came up with a plan to have our inspectors drive our major streets when it was raining and the contractors weren't working. In 2019, we found over 3,400 potholes and repaired them. In 2020, we had just under 1,000 potholes, and in 21, we had under 500 potholes on our major streets. So the trend is fantastic. Our response time went from, on average, 20 days to less than 5 days. Most are fixed within about 48 hours, a lot of them in 24 hours. So this is also part of the bond program. The more we fix our streets and do the asphalt overlays as well, that helps with preventing future potholes. So it's all kind of going together. So that's all I have for today, and I think I'm the last person.
Thank you very much. We're so glad to have you as our new director, Dan. So now it is question and answer time, and I don't know if anybody told you this, Julie, but since you're the newest council member, you get to come up and answer all the hard questions. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that to you. She was going to do it. That's awesome. She's all in. I love that. All right. So does anybody here have a question? Yes, sir.
For Dan, question about the few of the roads you've done in Plano so far, that you put the thin coating of asphalt over the cement. I know it's like I drive down Independence a lot, and that road seems to be wearing a lot better than most roads just with concrete. So is this still kind of in the test stage, or something you're going to be rolling out across more streets in Plano, or is it still being evaluated?
We are full speed ahead on the asphalt overlays. The bond program approved $100 million for our arterial streets to do concrete repair and the overlays. We're planning to do Coit Road when it warms up next year, because it has to be, I think, 60 degrees or warmer to be able to do the overlays. So Coit's going to be done. We're looking at Parker Road on the west side of town and also the east side of town as well. We just finished Jupiter. Actually, that's not complete yet, but it's almost done. And Plano Parkway on the west side of town from Preston up to Park Boulevard. So what we do is we look at where we've recently been, because you want to go protect that pavement that we fixed in the last 2 to 3 years first, right? But also look at the condition of the road and plan the concrete projects ahead of the overlay projects, and also plan from a geographic standpoint, not having too much going on at one time. The actual overlay process is pretty neat. It takes about, do 4 or 5 miles, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to do the actual overlay. It's the concrete repairs that take all the time with it. But yes, we are expanding that program.
And can you explain what the overlay does to help protect the concrete? Because I think we call it an enhanced construction method.
Sure.
to do this. But I think that understanding what it protects and what it doesn't allow helps reduce the incident.
There's several benefits to the overlay. So concrete has joints, so concrete can expand and contract and not crack, right? So those joints, they get old over time, and water starts to seep into the surface. And we all know water and clay don't mix very well, and things start to move and break down. So the overlay seals off the entire pavement surface, so water can't seep into it. It also improves the ride quality drastically. It's performing a full maintenance treatment for the entire stretch from point A to point B, instead of just fixing one patch of concrete here and there. And the aesthetics look great too. It's all one surface instead of that patchwork look that you get from the old way that we did it. Yes?
Overlay process, is that strictly an overlay, or are you kind of scraping or etching the surface of the concrete as well?
So it's still a concrete street, and once we fix the concrete, we put a 3/4 inch thin asphalt overlay on top of it. So it's just an overlay. We're not scratching the street.
Okay. Because, I mean, I've driven down many of those, and it's actually impressive at the seams where it seems to be even with the the concrete.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, they're doing a really good job, I guess, of just tapering that at the end.
So at the ends, they will grind down. So they'll grind down about 3/4 inches, so you do get that flush
Okay.
surface. You're right,
Okay.
but across the entire street, they don't grind it. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
The city recently redid the intersections at Park and Coit, and Parker and Coit at the same time, and it was a complete disaster trying to get through those intersections. Don't do that again.
We won't. So that was a miscommunication between two different departments. We had an issue on Parker and Coit where we had concrete breaking down constantly and had to go put asphalt onto it, and it would not stay. And engineering at the time was working at Park and Coit as well, and that's when they started their removing the hump in the intersection, which caused them to go to one lane of traffic. So we heard about it, as we should.
Oh, good. Glad I wasn't the only one.
And I live right there, actually. I'm at Park and Coit.
Anybody else have a question? We've got one on Zoom.
So the question that we have is, can you fix the Parkwood and Legacy issue? We've heard that Encore is the problem, but how do we get that resolved?
I'm assuming that's regarding street. And do you want to, are you going to take that, Mark?
It's not a meeting if Mark doesn't get put on the spot, right? Well, good morning, everybody. We are doing some traffic improvements to improve the flow of traffic by adding some left-hand turn lanes, some right-hand turn lanes. And part of the challenge that we have with those, if you'll notice, you go to an intersection, in the medians, oftentimes we're just outside of the right-hand turn lane. We will have street lights, we will have utility poles, and so it takes utility coordination to actually move those out of the way so that we can add an additional lane in to turn left or turn right. If you're out at the Parkwood area, what you'll notice is there are still some pedestals there from street lights that we were trying to work with Encore to remove as quickly as we can. It's been a bit of a process, unfortunately, but we're still working on that, and we do anticipate to get that done as quickly as we can. So we are escalating this to get this done from Encore as quickly as we can. But that's an ongoing project that we have there. We actually have a number of those projects going on. The Legacy Corridor is next up with engineering to add some of those additional capacity improvements to improve the flow of traffic with those turn lanes. So we are working on those throughout the city. And so hopefully we will be able to get the Parkwood and Legacy resolved as quickly as we can.
Any other questions in person or, okay, great, we have another one on Zoom.
From Zoom is, over the years, the amount of calcium has increased dramatically, causing damage to hardware. Is there a reason for such an increase, and have there been other complaints?
So I'm guessing the calcium side of things is based on water quality, is okay. So our water quality and the mineralization of water is part of what you experience in North Texas. So the challenge that we have is we purchase our water from North Texas Municipal Water District. They actually produce the water through our lakes, and we are the first water district in the state in the last 30 years to build a new reservoir, which is now being filled up at Lake Bodark. But that water is treated at their Wiley treatment plant and then transmitted over to the city where we distribute it within the city. As far as the water quality and the calcification, the water quality standards that we have through the water district are all EPA and TCEQ approved, so the water is very safe. But there is some mineralization that you experience with that water, and it is one of those maintenance aspects that residents should take care of from time to time. So. Unfortunately, that's just a byproduct of the water that we purchase.
Any other questions in person? Another one on Zoom, great.
This one's from Zoom. We've had our electricity line that services our neighborhood entrance at Coit and Hearst Castle Way. The power ran under the street from the south side of our entrance to the north side. We haven't done any construction, but there was no there's no recent construction. The cost to restore it is over $5,000, which we can't afford. I looked into solar, and the city has issues with that. Neighborhood Services doesn't have any grants that cover infrastructure repair, only beautification. Is there another place in the city where we could go to apply for an infrastructure repair grant so we can restore this electricity?
Yeah, I'm gonna camp out now. If they can contact my office, they can send me an email, marki@plano.gov. We're happy to look into what some nonprofits might be able to assist with that. We can put them in contact with some resources. When we're talking about electric service, obviously that's provided by Encore on the distribution side of things, and we've seen a number of outages happen over the last couple days due to the wind. If you drive around town and you notice the distribution lines, there's oftentimes trees planted underneath the distribution lines to help kind of shield the view of some of those things. Well, when those grow up and winds blow, you get power lines that are getting hit with limbs, and oftentimes that can cause some outages. But when we're having a service disruption or service issue like that, it has to be coordinated through an electrician and through Encore. And if there's an issue with being able to afford that, we're happy to help. If we don't have the resources ourselves, provide them some names of nonprofits that might be able to assist.
Any other questions? Go. Oh, okay.
So the laser, or the satellite leak detection is intriguing. And how can a satellite, and I'm wondering, is this satellite blindly? Is this satellite scanning the horizon, looking for leaks, but then overlooking like bad roofs and property leaks and other things, or is it also protecting other stuff as well?
I wish I had the answer to that. This is a proprietary thing that the company does. There are several cities now that are using it. From what I understand, it uses radar. And when the satellite comes over, there's radar that's pushed into the ground about 9 to 10 feet deep. And when that radar reacts with treated water and clay soils, it gives off a certain bandwidth. There will be some false positives, but we're getting a lot of true positives as well. And the more you do it, the better you get at it too. And it's not that expensive.
All covered under the Patriot Act.
Yes. That's as much as I can say.
But you're concerned about what information the city's getting, right?
Well, I'm just curious what else is coming with it. But the other thing in particular, if it can detect leaks in the street, is it also detecting that, hey, I've got a leak in my yard?
It will.
You call me and say, hey, have you got a problem that needs attention?
That's a great point, yes. And we found several leaks that were on the customer side, and then we'll let them know what's going on so they can get it repaired. Because it's costing them money to have the leak there.
Right.
So it's customer side, meter, distribution main, fire hydrants. Covers it all.
All right, thanks.
Yes.
Robert?
I had a question about the comprehensive plan. What's it doing for the four-corner retail? We have way too much of it.
Do you want to address that, Christine?
Sure. There was a lot of discussion about that at the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, and so certainly it came down to the fact that they did update the classification in the future land use map. But there was also the acknowledgement that with the time limitations of the committee, they couldn't really resolve that issue. So there are actions in the plan that talk about actually further study of that issue. So I think that's something that really needs to be addressed through further policy and further study. So I think it was addressed, it was studied, but at the same time, it's something that we acknowledge in the plan needs additional study. To really be able to have more firm actions and a firm resolution to those issues.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Go back to comprehensive planning. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was led by that whole effort was led by a consulting group or contract that sometime ago, initially the city council approved, it was like about $1 million for the initial contract. So is that about how much was spent in terms of this effort? spent outside of city resources?
Right. I think the last number I saw was we were at $750,000 on that contract. I think we'll come in a little higher than that, but that's the last number I saw. I don't know if, Mike, you have seen that more recently. So I think that was before the month that we did the outreach, this last outreach push, so it's going to come in a little higher, but I think we'll likely be under the $1 million. But yes.
And a follow-up question, then, the analysis that was done looked to be very comprehensive in terms of breaking down and identifying how individual areas match or did not match. From a long-term impact standpoint, was there or is there any analysis of if that plan is developed to its potential, okay, what is the potential long-term impact on the tax base of the city? Those types of things. You know, what's the long-term financial impact? Was there some kind of analysis that part of it? I didn't see it.
Sure. That kind of analysis was not done as part of the plan. So
it's desirable, but we're not exactly sure of what that might mean long-term from a financial standpoint.
Right.
Okay.
There are softwares that can do that type of analysis. It's usually a little shorter term than 20 or 30 years, but we did not do that as part of this planning effort.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, we still have a few minutes. Go for it.
Okay. Plano Parkway, the old Arco buildings, they knocked down a bunch of them. And I can't figure out what they're going to do. If anybody knows what's going to happen, what they're planning to put into that property.
So, good morning again. So that's NTT Data. We don't have those exact plans as far as what they're intending out there. We know that there has been some construction. There has been some removal of some parking facilities and things like that, shelters and stuff like that they're taking down, parking shelters. But we don't have the exact design of what they're bringing in yet. When we get that, we can circle around, make sure the neighborhood is aware of that.
Thank you.
Of course.
I'll just stick with
Anything else? All right. Well, we really appreciate all of those who joined us on Zoom today and those who came in person. If those of you who are here in person have a few more minutes, you'll notice that we're in our new beautiful Neighborhood Services building. We do have some members of the Neighborhood Services team here who are available to give you a tour of the building. So if you'd like to stick around and do that, you are welcome to do that. And so we thank you for coming today. And you will be getting, everyone, whether you're in person or on Zoom, you will be getting some follow-up emails with links to the presentations that you saw today. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
It's one of the first brick houses built downtown. It was built by a very well-known architect, and of course it was built by for one of our most important citizens, Celestine Sagling.
Celestine Sagling built the house 12 years after her husband, C.F. Sagling, passed away. Mr. Sagling was a great civic leader and prominent businessman, founding the Sagling Lumber Company.
There were teas and luncheons here, bridal showers, and even a wedding.
Its rich history and architectural significance earned the Sagling House status as a Texas historic landmark. Sagling family descendants, some traveling from other states, converged on the house to help dedicate the plaque.
I'm 4 generations here in Plano, so we have our roots here, and it's very nice that somebody has taken the effort and they have such a keen interest in history and follow up on